Hi, my name is Rayshawn, and I am trying to get hired as an industrial designer. Welcome back, guys, to the second installment of my 5-part series where I try to recreate projects found on Behance to sharpen my industrial design skills. This project is the Atom Mini Massage Gun, designed by Acasso for the Hydrogun brand. This project was a little bit different than the first one as it had animations and some product photography. Now, if you haven't seen the first part, I definitely recommend checking that out. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. But without further delay, let's get into how I recreated this project. I like to start all my projects by collecting as much information as I can before modeling, and this time I had a better idea of what to look out for. I started with the brand's website. Hydrogun have a decent catalog of images, product specs, and user reviews on their website, all of which I used to get the correct sizing and scale of their product. I watched a few of their advertisements and user reviews to see if there was any other good shots or freeze frames I could pull from. It felt like there was more information available for this project compared to the first one, as I was able to use more dimensions and angles to help reference my CAD model. The CAD model wasn't as tricky this time around. I tried to implement some of the feedback from the last project into the construction of this one. For starters, I made sure I had all the necessary sizes before constructing, including the width. I also drew a cross-section with as much detail and features as I could, so I didn't get caught trying to figure out something later on. Finally, I tested a few techniques and features before starting the modeling. For example, I wanted to revolve the massage head instead of extruding it, so I tested the revolve feature to make sure it did what I was thinking it would do, and I also tested some of the material settings in Blender, but I'll show you what happened to that in the next part. Modeling in Fusion felt a little less strenuous this time. The model was more basic and didn't require as many features like internal parts or crazy shapes. Plus, I had a better understanding of how parts translate from Fusion to Blender, so I made my model accordingly. I ended up with a lot of individual bodies because I wanted to change the material individually or manage each part separately. I'm sure there's an easier way to do this, so I'll try and figure that out for the next project. But that was the modeling part done. Now, onto the rendering. Blender was just as tedious this time as it was last time because I still struggle with material setup and lighting. On top of this, I had to learn animation, which felt like the easiest part of the rendering time, but I'm still very new to the process and quality versus time consumption of the renders can be improved. So remember when I said I tested some material in Blender? Well, I copied a tutorial on how to create an aluminium material from YouTube, but the final product was not what I needed. This was more of a brushed finish with a very obvious grain in the material, whereas I needed more of an anodized look. I tried a few other tutorials and messed with a few of the other material nodes, but I figured they had to be a pre-made material I could just download from somewhere, which there was. And thanks to a plugin which gave community access to a variety of different materials, I found a look which was very close. Originally, I thought I could use a HDR file to get the color and brightness of the renders correct, but I ended up lighting my own file as the few HDRs I had were too bright or hard to get the right flare and shading. I played with a few different setups using area lights, suns, planes with emission, but found the best results when things were more simple. I had to shrink my original model down as it was too big for some of the camera angles I wanted, and the lights did not play too nicely with the larger objects. The hero shots weren't too difficult to do, but I also had to get some animation done. I just want to give a quick shout out to the Blender Guru, who's the guy I watch if I ever need to find out something or learn something in Blender. He almost always has a tutorial for the process or the thing that I'm trying to learn. I will literally have his video up, following it step by step, but changing the settings to fit whatever I'm trying to do. That's how I learned animation. I watched parts of his Blender guide, which to be honest wasn't too hard, and the setup and settings part didn't take very long, and the process of getting the keyframes in Blender was pretty simple. The rendering of the images, which becomes the animation, took the longest. I opted for a more detailed rendering of these images, which takes more time, but the end result didn't exactly turn out as detailed as I'd like. I didn't think I was getting a better animation quality by cooking them longer. I think the animation quality is something I'll have to come back to because they took so long to process, but I had the hero shots and the animations done. Now onto the third part, which is a little different for this project as it requires some model making. So there are a few shots in here in situ with a person holding or using this product. I wanted to recreate these too, so I needed a model. I originally thought I could create a lifelike model to recreate the images one for one, but unfortunately, due to the time and the quality of the 3D printer I had access to, I had to do a bit of a workaround. Originally, I attempted to print my CAD in 2 halves, so I could just stick it together and not have to worry too much about the alignment or forgetting parts. Unfortunately, the prints came out with a banana curve in them. I'm sure this is a material/printer setting I could fix, but I didn't want to waste time trying to find the best way to make that process work. So I sliced the file into a few more manageable parts and printed them in that way. I had a bit of trouble getting the nozzle to fit inside the main part. Now it's at this point I realized that finishing and painting a 3D print is going to take a while, which I couldn't guarantee would result in a good looking model. So I decided to do a little CGI. I used this little Frankenstein print as a reference part. I copied the poses in the images and then superimposed a render over those photos. I mainly edited the CGI shots for this project. They took a bit to isolate the necessary poses, dropped them onto a clean background, then worked the render into place. If you can't tell, I have a lot of hair on my arms and legs, so the magic wand struggled in some places. One thing I did for all my shots was to replicate the lighting from the original images. I used the curves adjustment layer, a trick I picked up from the last project, just to make sure everything looks similar. I didn't spend as much time reworking my renders this time because I felt like the images were a lot closer compared to what I was trying to copy in the Fussy project. Plus, it was a lot easier for me to just re-render a shot than try and rework lighting in Photoshop, because I felt like I could make those adjustments a little quicker this time. But with all the renders edited and finalized, that was it. Images were complete. This project felt a bit more consistent than the last one, but I felt like I wasted so much time after Christmas. I definitely let myself go with accountability, and it's something that I've put as a priority going into the next few projects. I still had challenges and hurdles to overcome. I still feel like some of the renders didn't quite hit the mark, but this one definitely didn't feel as aimless as the other one. Key insights from tackling this project was planning, quality, and restrictions. Planning a little bit more precisely definitely helped, considering a wide variety of perspectives, challenges, and techniques that I could/would encounter helped make the most of the time that I had. Even though I blew out my project timeline, the time I did spend on this project felt a little bit more refined than the last. I knew what I was trying to achieve, and I knew I had the means to achieve it. I definitely can plan better for the next project, but that comes with experience. Quality is just making sure you strive for the best. I did feel like there were a couple of times where I could have left something looking off, or I didn't want to redo something because of a slight mistake, but the added diligence paid off, which leads us into the final insight: restrictions. Learning to work within your means and make the most of your restrictions was something I hadn't really considered in previous projects. For example, couldn't get the 3D printer to work. Cool. Find another way to make the model work. Didn't know how to make animations before this. Cool. Find a tutorial, copy the settings, and make it work after that too. I think being resourceful is a key skill to have, and it helps boost confidence. I really enjoyed doing this project, as in I felt joy the first time I saw my render, or the first time I saw my animation play. It felt good to tackle something new, and to see your efforts come alive. It took some time, and sometimes it didn't work out, but it was always worth the time spent. Well, that was a process of recreating the Atom Mini Massage Gun by Hydra Gun. This project added a few new skills to the arsenal and got me hyped for the next project as well. But that's 2 projects down, 3 to go. The next project is the Ruka Edge Slick by Blonde. Big shout out to Acasso for letting me use their work. Special mention to Jake Lee for reaching out before this project began. And big shout out to the Blender Guru for always coming through with the Blender facts. I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to check out more of the work from the people just mentioned. And if you want to see the final renders too, I'll leave a link to that as well. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.